Hi there. I'm going to delve into the spiritual attribute of truth. Now, what I mean by the spiritual attribute of truth is how we as spiritual people see truth, how we use truth. When you look at truth, when somebody says truth, you think of fact. If something is the truth, then it must be a fact. And that is one of the meanings. And there are a lot of facts in the cosmic, in the universe, in existence. Some of them we don't know. Some of them there are theories about, like how did it all begin? And a lot of religious thought and writings and belief systems over the years have sought to explain, where did we all come from? How did it all happen? And at the time, those people, those members of humanity who were thinking about this, they looked around their world and all they had to go by was what was in their world. And they made connections to the spiritual side, to their soul. But the only way that these things could be explained had to fit in with what they could see around them. So we ended up with a whole lot of various spiritual beliefs in ancient peoples in various parts of the world. But from what we can see from history, from the beginning of humanity's individualization, we have seemed to look for something outside of ourselves, something beyond ourselves, something eternal, something that was controlling everything, something that was making everything. Where did it start? Where did it come from? Where is it going? What happens when we die? All of these things. So many so-called truths have been expressed down through the ages, and people believed those as truths. So that is another aspect of truth, what people believe to be the truth. Now, in ordinary life, we can see truth in a pretty mundane way. Two people on opposite sides of the road see somebody hit by a bus. They both saw the bus hit the person, so they can both say, that bus hit that person. I think we could safely say that's the truth, that it is a fact, that you can't dispute that, it's known. However, one of the people may have looked inside the bus and seen the bus driver do something that they think may have contributed to the accident. So they formed that belief, and that's the truth to them. That's how they saw it. So when they're giving their statement, they're saying, oh, this is what's happened. The bus driver did this, that and the other. Now, the person on the other side of the road, looking in, got a different view of the bus driver. And maybe they saw somebody else that wasn't seen from the other side of the road. And they're likely to say, oh no, it wasn't like that at all. It was like this. And they'll give their version. And now you've got two people who are both convinced that their version is the truth, and nobody is going to change their mind. Obviously, the police will take both versions and take it all into consideration. And that's often what we have to do. We have to take my truth, your truth, somebody else's truth, and put it all together sometimes to come up with the most likely truth of a situation. And some of that is how it is with our spiritual beliefs, whether it's religious or whether we've moved beyond religion and we're just spiritual people now. We still do have our own particular belief system. You could call them, some of it, the rules of our being. That certainly applies to our belief system, how we believe we should behave. And to us, that can be a truth. I must behave in this way, or I'm going to have bad karma, or I'm not going to heaven, or, whatever reason it is. And that's a truth for me, say. Whereas your truth is, but my truth is that if I follow that belief, I'm restricting myself and I'm not going to grow as a spiritual person. So my truth is different to yours. Now, we both of us are in different stages in our soul's evolution. So each person's truth is valid for them. Each person's truth is serving a purpose for them in their life at that time. So what we have to do is, within reason, respect each other's truths. Obviously, with everything that we do as committed spiritual people, we look to what is right action. And even that, is not necessarily set in stone or is easily understood. But we want to cause the least harm. We preferably cause no harm. But if some harm has to be caused, we want it to be the least. So if somebody's truth to you is obviously not truth, but it's not hurting them and not hurting anyone else, then why not leave them to it? You could share your truth if you think that your truth is more liberating and that it would help them to grow, but be mindful not to force it at them. We have to be respectful of people within the bounds of right action, of course. We could go on a side trip here into a whole lot of other scenarios where we shouldn't respect someone's truth because of their truth is allowing them to behave in ways that is really totally unacceptable to the majority of human beings. But I think most of us would realise that they are different cases and not what we're basically trying to talk about here in our spiritual attribute of truth. So it's not like we can attain truth. What we can do on our spiritual path, though, is seek truth. Now, which truths do you look for? Are you interested in the meaning of life? What caused the universe? Is there only one universe? There's so many different truths that we could be looking for. And what we will find is that our soul will draw us on our journey to look for the truth wherever we need to find it. And as we are progressing on our journey, we will thoroughly believe something that has been presented to us as being the truth. And we would argue it with other people if we were the arguing type. But then life has a way of throwing some curveballs or just leading us to somewhere where we see something a bit different. We see a different take on our truth, perhaps, that we hadn't considered. Or we find something, I don't know, it's like, wow, I believe this. This makes so much sense, but oops, it contradicts this other thing that I've believed for the last 5 years. Ooh, what's going on here? Oh, I don't like to admit I was wrong. I'll have to admit I was wrong if I'm going to embrace this new truth. Ooh, Well, spiritual people have to learn how to admit when they were wrong, even if it's only to themselves. It's always good if you can admit it to others. It's a sign of growth and of strength. But we can't hold ourselves back from our growth if a new truth that we can see is very important to us as spiritual people, to actually explore it, to embrace it, to take it on, to live by it, contradicts something that we've held as truth in the past. What it is really is that truth that we held on to in the past. It served a purpose. It was true for us then. And it perhaps even that truth has and following it and living by it has what's led us to this new point where we can see something different, a different truth that has superseded the old one because we've grown. And that's what the spiritual path is full of, not just in one life. You may not see it as much in one life, depending upon how fast you are growing in that life. But certainly over the many lives we've lived, we've probably been members of most of the world religions. We've probably been against most of the world religions. We've been on both sides in the war of the warring parties. This is my truth and I'll die for it. Next life, this is my truth and I'll die for it. And they're totally opposites. We just don't see it in that lifetime. We certainly see it in between lives though. And that's where we grow as well. When we examine in our lifetimes and when we are in between lives, we get to look back on past lives. And that's where we see the path of truth. That fine, weaving, curving, white line that flows through every human being's life. Truth. It's anchored somewhere in the cosmos, in the spiritual realms, with the Creator, the Source. And we're all following it. And eventually, perhaps we will reach a stage in our evolution where we will know the absolute truth, if there is one. Or maybe there's lots, because we don't know. We don't really know for sure. We can only know where we're up to. And that's our truth. We are who we are. We're doing the best we can. And that's all we can do. And keep striving. And keep believing in ourselves. And I'll leave it with you now with this. And you can add this to what's written in the lesson. Something to think about. And help you to formulate your own truths along the way. Thank you.